Boom! What up, guys? We are live. So the debate that you guys have been asking for is here. We got Jesse Lee Peterson joining us. So appreciate you being here, Jesse. So let's start off with a very quick introduction for anyone who's not familiar with who you are.
Yeah.
Just explain who you are and what you do.
I have a nonprofit organization that I've been running for the last 32 years, and we have been rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man, bringing back the order of God, God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. We also have we counsel. We have an entrepreneur academy where we are helping young men and older men to start businesses that are part of the academy. We started a credit union so we could loan them the money because some of them have bad credit. So especially young guys. So we loan them the money, they pay it back with interest. We have a women's forum, a men's forum every first Thursday night of the month, and for ladies only every third Thursday night of the month, and Sunday morning for everybody, where we're dealing with all the kind of issues that they are dealing with, and counseling and all that kind of stuff. So we're pretty busy.
Cool, man. Cool.
Also,
So
we
yeah,
do a podcast, jesseleepeterson.com and the Fallen State TV, fallen state.tv.
cool. Yeah. So I was on Jesse's show a few months ago. It was a good
Yeah.
discussion. I think it went better than both of us thought it was.
No, it was amazing.
It was amazing.
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 But yeah, so
Thanks,
my
thanks for
format is
coming on, by the way.
yeah, dude. It was a good convo.
Yeah.
Now my format is a little different than yours. Yours is kind of more like intense interview style. Mine is more of a debate format. So I'm not going to ask you like too many questions in a row. It's just we're gonna flesh out certain topics. So the topic I wanted to start off with, which I think where you and I largely disagree on, is premarital sex. So you say that premarital sex is bad. So my question is, why is it bad?
It's bad in the sense that it become like a drug to men. Women are sex dealers and men are sex addicts. And so when you start having sex, it causes you to become emotional and feel needy, like you really need the woman to make you feel good, and you lose sense of consciousness, and it's no different than smoking pot or doing drug. You become addicted to it, where all your attention is focused. Most of your attention is focused on sex, rather than getting to know her, and she getting to know you. It become like a drug. She become the drug dealer. You become the drug addict, and so you tend to lose yourself trying to find that fix again. So you really don't see who you're about to marry or who you're involved with.
Jesse, so what if you have sex in moderation and you don't get needy? Would it be okay in that circumstance?
Um, if you were able to have sex in moderation, but men are not able to have sex in moderation because when they don't have it, they feel like something is missing or they feel unloved. So they feel like they gotta have it. And women know that. And so women use sex to control the man, sex and food. She know that you are addicted to her for the sex. And so she'll use that against you by not giving it to you, which makes you want it more or controlling you with it. So it's no such thing as doing it in moderation.
Well, what if you can do it in moderation? Like me, for example, I have sex in moderation, right? I'm not addicted to sex. I have sex twice a week. I don't need it. I don't really care, but it's fun for me to do it. So for someone like me who can have sex in moderation, would you then say it's okay?
Well, I can, if you could go without it for a year, then you can do it in moderation. But if you can't go without it, there's no such thing as moderation.
But why would I want to go without it for a year?
Why do you? Why? Because you want to have you want to have self control. You want to be addicted to anybody or anything that you can't do without.
Well, it's like saying, why don't you go a year without hanging out with your friends? I could do it, but I like my friends and I like spending time with them. It's a key part of the human experience is bonding with other people, and another key part of the human experience is having sex. So yeah, I could go a year without talking to my friends. I just don't want to. It's the same thing with sex. I could do it. I just don't want to. There's no reason. There's nothing that it benefits me. If you give me $10 million to not have sex for a year, I'll do it. But unless there's a strong incentive, why would I want to do it?
How about to do it to so that you will have self control? Why do you need to bond with friends or anyone? There is no reason. As a matter of fact, I would advise you not to bond with anyone because that's what happens through sex. You bond with the woman, and now she has control over you, and she has uh, uh, a love hate thing going on with you because she know that you don't really care about her, so she hate that because you're weak, and then she know that if you stop doing it, she doesn't have control over you because women they love control, but they hate control. They need the man to be in order so that he can bring her out of the hell that she's living in. Women are living in hell because they live in their imagination and emotions, and there's nothing good about that. And they need their fathers to keep them out of there when they're little kids, and they need their husband to bring them completely out of it.
Jesse, where do you come up with this stuff?
Uh, um,
Women are living in hell? Like, you think all women are living in hell?
yes, until they forgive their mothers for turning them away from their fathers. You know, God said that we must be born. All people who are born of the flesh, all those who come through the woman are dying, but those who are born of the spirit of the Father are living. So we have to overcome that fallen nature of the woman and return to the living nature of the Father. And
All
so
right.
all women and men are catching hell, but the hell come through the woman.
Yeah, but okay, so you said earlier that that the woman knows when you're having sex with her that you don't actually care about her. But what if you care about the woman? For example, I care about my girlfriend deeply, right? So in a situation, so would you say in a situation where you care about the girl but you're not married, is it okay to have sex then?
If you care about her, you wouldn't have sex with her until you marry her. That way you can bring her into your world rather than going into her world. And women would prefer, I know women are like sluts now. Most women are sluts and men are slut makers. But most women would rather wait until marriage. But, and if the man truly loved her in the way that he should love her, he would wait until he marry her and bring her into his world. But if you having sex with her before marriage, it's a sign of not loving her.
Yeah, that's just fundamentally not true that all women prefer to wait until marriage to have sex. Only a very small percentage of women prefer that. The vast majority of women don't need to wait until marriage. They just want to have sex with a guy they feel comfortable with. So that's just like fundamentally not a true assumption that
What
most women prefer to wait until marriage.
Well, I said it's not true today because most women are sluts today, and they know that sex is their strongest drug that they can use against the man, and they see how desperate the men are for sex, and so they're using their bodies. That's why they walk around half naked and these little tight things on because they'll walk around as sex dealers, but it's not that they're into it as much as the man, but they'll do it just to have control over you.
You don't think a woman can be into sex as much as a man?
Once I mean, she can, yeah, she can, in that she'll use it against you to control you with it, but she'll prefer not to.
But you don't think just for the act, like let's just take control outside the picture. You don't think a woman could just enjoy the act of sex as much as man?
I mean, they can today because they're not in their natural state of being. They've been made to be sluts, and so they can, but it still won't have the same meaning that men have when they have sex.
Jesse, when you're watching a porno, who's screaming at the top of their lungs? Is it the guy or the girl? It's the girl who's like, ah! It's not the guy. It's not the guy that's screaming. That to me is pretty clear evidence that the woman is enjoying sex way more than the guy.
You know why she's screaming?
Because she's
Because
coming?
no, she's doing it. She's screaming like that to make you think that you're doing a good job. It's all an act. She's acting out, but she could be really bored with it. But she'll scream just to deceive you in order to control you, to make you think that you're doing an amazing job, but it's just to build your ego so she can maintain control over you.
But why do you think women can't enjoy sex for the act of itself? Like, I don't know. Like, every girl I ever had sex with is, like, super into it. Like, or I don't know if you've had some bad experiences in the past, but every girl I've ever fucked was, like, really into it. Where's this idea coming from that women can't enjoy sex? Like, what do you base that on?
Because, in all honesty, the only purpose of sex is to make babies, to get married and make babies. And if you don't want babies, there's no reason to have sex. If it wasn't for sex, Men wouldn't have anything to do with women. They only want to be with them for sex because the woman is their God and they need to have some of God's false love. But they don't really care about the woman, they just care about the sex.
So you would say I don't really care about my girlfriend, like I'm just pretending?
Right. You don't really you don't really care about her. You just care about the sex and the feel good feeling that you get from her. And that's why you're up and down. Some days you feel good with her, some days you don't. And likewise with you, when you with her, when she's angry, she'll have sex to make herself feel better. As soon as the sex is done, now she's back to her being angry again or being out of control. I'm telling you, it's like a need for drugs.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
not
know.
about love at all.
It doesn't need to be about love, but sometimes it is. I mean, I think you have a very outdated view of sex where you think that women aren't really enjoying sex and it's like a power play. And I will concede that sometimes women can use sex as a tool of manipulation, but
Yeah.
that's not always the case. The vast majority of the time, women are having sex for because they enjoy sex, because it's fun, it's a good activity, feels good. That's the point of human experience, is to do things that break you happy and enjoy happiness. I don't think it's like has to be about power and control all the time.
We should be seeking happiness. We should be seeking peace and not happiness, because happiness comes and go because it's a fake. It's an evil emotions, and there's no real life in happiness. And so that's why you have to keep going back to her to get your fix, because you lose that feeling of happiness and now you feel angry or empty or like something is missing. So you go back to her to get that fix again, and now you're feeling happy. She does the same thing with you, and then in a few days that fake happiness wears off. Now you got to go back to your to get the fix again, because it's not the real deal.
Okay, do you think sex is like normal and natural? Like, do you think it's a natural part of the human experience?
It's a normal, natural thing if you want to create children, but if you don't want to create children, there's no need for it.
But you can have sex without having kids. I mean, there's a reason why we evolved to have sex feel so good, right? Like, if it was just for having children, then it would. There's no need for it to feel that good, right? So there's clearly something more to it than just like fucking having a kid. There's some kind of pleasure. There's a reason why we can say God or evolution or whatever it is that you believe in. Why we evolved for sex to feel so good. Like, there's got to be something more to it than kids.
When you haven't evolved, you have devolved. You have fallen away from yourself into a fallen state, and so you look for pleasure to make yourself feel better, because you are devolving, you're dying and not living. If man had never fallen away from what is right, he could not even have sex. It would be impossible, because you have perfect peace. And if you have perfect peace, there's no need for anything else. So you're not evolving, you're devolving when you have sex.
Here's one thing I don't get about you, Jesse. So you're kind of on the right. Like, you realize that there's problems with the state, and you say that there's a lot of issues and blah blah blah, which I kind of agree with you on, right? But you know that marriage can be very horrible for men. Like, if you get a woman who divorces you, she can take all your money. So why would you want to encourage men to get married or wait? Wouldn't you want to do the opposite? Wouldn't you say, "Yo, have sex, but don't get married"? Like, shouldn't your approach be the opposite?
I would say stop seeking pleasure, then you wouldn't have sex before marriage, and you would don't. Men have to overcome the woman. The woman is the man's God, right? And so he's trying to get something from God, his God, the man's God, and Satan is the woman's God. And so what I was saying, not to have, because I made a baby out of wedlock too. Fortunately, I didn't have to go through all that child parent stuff, because during those days, women were not into taking men to court and making them pay and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's best, if you want a family, it's best to wait until you get married, and don't look for a woman. You look for what is right, overcome that fallen state. And if it's meant for you to get married, the right woman would come along, and you would get with her the right way, and there would be no divorce. You would be together until death do you part. But men are marrying the wrong woman based on sex and not on true love.
But
And that's why, so they end up marrying the devil, and they end up catching hell the rest of their lives.
But if we acknowledge the fact that marriage ends so poorly for so many men, then why would you even want to encourage men to get married if they can? If 50% of marriages end in divorce, 80% of marriages the woman initiates divorce. Why would you want to encourage men to do that?
That's a good question. Well, I don't. I want them to. I recommend that they get married only if they want to start a family, right? If they want children. If you're not going to have children, there's no reason to get married because a family is one man, one woman, and children. If you're not going to have children, there's no reason to get married. Uh, um, and I encourage them to overcome the raw need for the woman so that when they do get if and when they do get married, they won't be controlled by the woman. They will control the woman. She will not control them. And a woman that is being controlled by her man in the right way, being controlled by her husband, would never leave because that's what she desires, is to be led by the man and not the man to follow her. It's just that most men are really weak now and they end up following the woman. And all that does is create problem because, as you know, every time the man listens to the woman, he suffers. A man should never, ever, ever listen to a woman. And but these men, it's backwards now, and they're listening to the woman, so they end up with the wrong woman, and that's why they're catching so much hell.
Yeah, I would agree with parts of what you said. We have a question from the audience. Alex, can you ask him if there are any great things of women, or are we literally only worth sex?
Can you ask what now? I'm sorry.
Are there any great things about women, or are they only are they only worth it for the sex?
Um, if you find the right one, if you want a family, it'll be good. You know, they're good to have families in that they will stay home, they will watch over your children, they will clean your house, prepare your meals, do things like that, and then love you in the right way because you love what's right, and she love you and follow you. That would be amazing.
All the things you mentioned though are super basic, like clean the house, like cook the food. You can hire people to do all that. I have a cleaning lady. I have a meal prep company. I think there's something a lot more that a woman can bring you than just like basic manual labor, right? You can just
Like
hire.
what, for example?
What can she bring you? She can bring you a sense of companionship. She can be your closest ally. She can help you walk with life whenever you have issues. Like for example, my girlfriend, she gives me so many ideas for my business. Whenever I have a moment where I'm struggling, she helps me. She's always there for me. She helps do research for me. Like my closest ally. Like that to me is worth so much more than just her like cleaning my house, which I can pay $80 for.
But if you were married to her, you wouldn't be able to use her in that way because you would need her to watch over your children for you. And it's a lot being married, staying home, raising the man children, making sure that they get homeschooled and fed and things like that. Children need the mother to be home with them and not hauling them off to some daycare center or babysitter and all that kind of crap. That's why God created the woman and the man so that the woman could be the help to the man in raising his family.
I mean, I sort of agree with you on that. Yeah, I think if you are having kids, it is definitely beneficial if the mother is there for the kids. So yeah, sure,
Right.
I agree with that part. But
And
like we're
a woman that overcomes her mother and love her father would be happy to be a woman. I meet them all the time now. They go and forgive their mothers for turning them against their fathers, away from their fathers, and they forgive their fathers for not protecting them from the mother. And they realize, wow, it's nice to be a woman. I don't need to be in competition with a man. And so that they love being a woman and being a wife and a mother. But a woman who has not overcome the fallen state, she she would be unhappy being in her natural state of being a wife and a mother.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think you have a really outdated way of looking at like sex and relationships, but
When you say outdated, what do you mean outdated?
meaning like 100 years ago, it was a common thought that like, oh, sex is something for the man, right? We lived in kind of like Victorian times, but nowadays, I think most people realize that sex is really, really fun for the women too, and it's a mutual experience. It's not just something like I take sex from a girl. It's like we're both doing something that's fun.
But it's not. Sex is not. I mean, what I'm telling you, when life was operating in that way, they had families, tight families. The grandparents were around, and the children. It created family. But when you change that order and made women feel like they're the same as a man, have the same rights and all that crap, then everything fell apart. Look what's happening now when you get married and things like that, because the woman her ego has been deceived and making her think that she's equal to a man, and she's not.
Oh, that's so. What you don't think, like, when you say a woman's not equal to a man? What do you mean specifically?
Men were created to lead, and women were created to follow. It's not in her nature to lead; it's in her nature to follow. And men were created to follow God, follow what's right, and the woman was made to follow the man. But because the woman have been made to feel like she's equal to a man, it's hard to find a decent woman that you can really marry and start a family with, one that will obey her husband.
Is that a general statement or an absolute statement when you say that women were created to follow? Is that you? Are you talking about generality, or are you talking about like absolutely?
Absolutely. Every woman on this side of heaven will create to follow and not lead. Look at the family when the woman is leading in the family. The kids end up becoming alcoholics and drug addicts and gang members and thugs and all kind of stuff. Um, uh, Hating themselves and their fellow man. It's a mess. Look at the blacks, for example. I'm sure you see what a mess black people in, right?
Um, yeah, some of them for sure. But I think
Yeah.
going back
Most of
to,
them.
I mean, I would agree that generally that's true. Like generally, men follow and women lead. However, there's so many exceptions to that. Like we're on YouTube right now. You know, the CEO of YouTube, Susan, is a woman, right?
What a mess.
YouTube? Are you kidding me, dude? It's one of the most profitable platforms ever.
But that doesn't mean success, though.
You don't think YouTube is a success?
Anybody can make money, but they can't lead.
But you don't think YouTube is a successful company?
Well, I don't know what you mean. I don't know because I don't know the depths of YouTube. You know what I mean? But even if you do have a woman doing that, she's not as good at it as a man would be because it's not in her nature.
I mean, I don't know, man. I feel like YouTube is a pretty big, successful company, and it's led by a woman. It was actually a woman's idea for YouTube to be bought out by Google. This Susan chick.
Do you think that women were created to lead?
I think that people, I think overwhelmingly, I think men tend to make better leaders. However, I think there's plenty of good female leaders out there. I think that human beings are very dynamic and variable people, and some of us have different qualities. But I think if we do an overall average, yes, I would say that a man makes on average a better leader because they're more assertive, they have testosterone. But there's not to say there's not some great
And
female
they're not
leaders.
as emotional and mental.
Yeah, there's some men who are very, very emotional too. I don't know, man. I
Just
see.
because they have not overcome their mothers. Emotional or mental man has the nature of his mother. That's why he has to be returned to the father. He must be born of the father so he can overcome that emotional stuff. It's like with the blacks, all this violence that you see coming from them right now, robbing and raping and murdering and stealing and killing and begging for affirmative action and reparation. That and joining gangs and things like that. That's the anger of the mother that has made a home in the boys and the girls, the adults, young and old. It's not natural for a man to be angry like that. It's an unnatural state for him.
Yeah, usually people get angry because they have past trauma, insecurities,
And
problems with
so
their.
look at the trauma that the black woman has brought upon the black children, right? Because she didn't have the man there to lead her in how to raise the children. And he wasn't there to protect the children from her anger. And so they have destroyed the kids, and now they call it racism and all type of isms. And it's not ism. It's a spiritual battle between good and evil, wrong versus right. How do you deal with your girlfriend's anger when she's just mad about nothing?
Well, my girlfriend, my girlfriend doesn't do that though. Like I picked a very good girl, so she doesn't get mad at me about nothing.
Do you correct her when she's wrong?
Yeah, but it's not like she's wrong often. But yeah, if she says something that I disagree with, yeah, I tell her that I think she's
Wh-
wrong.
When you correct her when she's wrong, how does she deal with it?
She usually listens to me, and then we have a conversation.
She does?
Yeah.
Oh, you must be doing it very softly. Honey, would you please go sit down?
Well, I mean, she's not like a child. I don't tell her to like sit down, but
No, I just use that as an example.
she's not like a dog. I'm like, go sit, good girl, good girl. Like, yeah, like, I don't treat her like a dog. But yeah, if we have like a disagreement over something, which we don't always do, I mean, yeah, I'll speak to her like I would speak to one of my friends. I speak to her calmly and normally. I mean, I think that's much better than like yelling, which just doesn't lead to anything good.
Amazing.
Why? How would you speak to like a girl? Would you be like, "You dumb bitch, sit over there"? Do you think that would be a more effective style?
No, I mean, you don't need to yell to lead, but you need to guide her because women need men to guide them in the right way to go. Do you ever listen to her?
Yeah, I listen when she talks.
So you follow her at times?
When she has a good idea, sure.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like my girlfriend has good ideas. Like, yeah, if she has a good idea, like, as she's like, "Oh, babe, I have a good idea. Let's do this." I'm not going to be like, "Oh, you're a woman. We can't do anything you ever say." Like, I'm like, "Oh, that's a good idea."
No,
Yeah.
an idea is not leadership. I mean, of course they can have ideas about things, but that's not what it means to lead.
Give me
It's
an
like you
example.
mentioned a person that is CEO of Google or
YouTube,
something.
YouTube, yeah.
YouTube. She could have ideas about, oh, let's make this way or that way, but that's not what leadership is.
What in your idea is leadership? Like, how would a girlfriend lead her boyfriend?
She can't.
Okay, what? Like, give me an example of how a woman would try to lead her man.
By telling him how to think, how he should act, encouraging him to be emotional because women think emotions are good, not realizing that it's evil, it's not good. She would, if she want to move to Florida or New York, but he lives in California, has a job and everything, and she said, "Well, I have a job in New York, I gotta move," and he give it, and you gotta come with me. If he decides to drop his job and give up his life to follow her, that's bad leadership because he will regret it.
Oh yeah, well I would just consider that being a shitty girlfriend. Yeah, my girlfriend doesn't do any of that, but I think we're defining leadership in totally different ways. But yeah, like
And also,
she doesn't try to get me change how I think. I do one thing you said that's interesting. You said emotions are bad.
yes,
You
emotions are evil. Um, um, yeah, emotions are evil,
you really think emotions are evil?
without a doubt.
You don't think that's just part of being human? Is having
That's
emotions?
that's where human nature is evil. That's why you must be born of the nature of God, because human nature is the nature of the devil, of evil, right? And that's why you have to overcome the anger so you can overcome that emotional stuff. God is a dispassionate God, and the devil is a passionate God. And so everyone, I don't care how rich, how poor, whatever color, male or female, everyone that has anger has those emotions that come straight out of hell, but they think it's them. They have identified with it as them. And even though they're miserable living that way, they work hard to maintain happiness, and then they're up and down because all emotions are anger. All emotions are evil.
So you're saying you don't have emotions?
I have it a little bit still, but I'm overcoming it, right? Because I realize that it's an ego nature. And once your heart is changed by God from anger to love, He will destroy the ego nature, give you a clearer mind, and get rid of all those emotions. Because if you notice, an emotional person, they think and then they feel. You can't have those emotions unless you have thoughts, right? You think of something good, now you feel good. You think of something bad, now you feel bad. You do the thoughts give you ideas of what to do to make yourself feel better. You do it. Then the thoughts give you ideas of what to do to make yourself feel bad. Now you're feeling bad. And after a while, you want to jump off a bridge because you're an emotional, evil person.
It just sounds like you're repressing your own emotions, which I don't think is good for you in the
What do you
long term.
mean?
Like you're saying like I'm working on like getting rid of my emotions. That's you can't get rid of emotions. That's like getting rid of breathing. It's part of the human experience. And if you suppress your emotions, you don't let them like actually like whatever like you don't actually let them manifest. I'm not saying you should be dictated by your emotions, but if you suppress your emotions, that's not going to be good for you in the long term. That's horrible
No,
for your mental well being.
I'm having the best time of my life as I overcome the ego, and it's not me, but that nature, the thoughts all thoughts are all lies all the time about anything, right? You get the thoughts and the feelings. I'm overcoming that. And as a result of overcoming that, I'm having the best time of my life
Are
because
you?
it's not based on people, places, or things. It's not based on what I have or don't have. There's no comparing to anyone. I'm just able to be myself without having to be in competition or trying to find love or anything from anyone or anything. If you really want to have an amazing life, a peaceful life, you have to overcome the ego nature because the ego nature is not good.
Yeah, I agree. You shouldn't be led by your ego, but that's not the same thing as saying that you can overcome emotions. That's like overcoming breathing. Like emotions are part of being human. Would you say, okay, Jesse, would you say that there's an element of sexual repression that's going on with you?
No, not at all. Well, I'm telling you, and I know that you probably don't understand what I'm saying
No, I
because
understand.
you do understand about um, that emotions are not good.
No, that part you're completely losing me on how emotions aren't good. Emotions are part of the human experience. They're not good or bad. It's like breathing. It's not good or bad. It's part of what makes you human. That's like saying dreaming is it good or bad. It's just what you do.
When you say emotions are good, did you say it's neither good nor bad?
Yeah, they're neither good or bad.
What do you mean by that? Well, why are
Meaning,
people feeling good and feeling bad, feeling good and feeling bad if it's not good or bad?
we evolved to have emotions so that we can use them to, for example, let's say we're in a situation where there's a bunch of people and someone attacks me, right? We have the emotion of anger so we can defend ourselves. Let's say, for example, someone does something really nice for you. We have the emotion of happiness or bonding, right? So that we can basically say, okay, well, like that person did something good for me. Let's say something really bad happens to you and like your mom dies. That's like you have the emotion of sadness, right? That's like, oh shit, like emotions are just a natural part of being a human and you can't repress them. There's like no way that's possible. You can't get rid of emotions either.
You can't over you can't do it of yourself because it's a spiritual battle. And if emotions were good, why do you think there's so much violence in the world today and suicide, drugs overdose and all those things, wars and things like that? If emotions are good, why do you think all this evil stuff is happening?
Well, I didn't say they were good. I said they're not neither good or bad.
Well, there has to be a good or a bad or right or wrong.
Would you say breathing is good or bad?
So what now?
Would you say breathing is good or bad?
Breathing is natural.
Exactly. So are emotions.
Emotions are unnatural.
You really think emotions are unnatural? Like you don't think like
Yeah,
you think
it's a natural unnatural state of being. If emotions were good, why do people work so hard to maintain that and it never works?
maintain what?
So-called good emotions.
Because emotions feel good. Good emotions feel good. Bad emotions feel bad.
But why not overcome it and not let your life be based on feelings at all?
Because that's like saying, why don't you overcome breathing? Like, why do you need to rely on oxygen? Because you cannot overcome something that's part of the human nature. That's like, why don't you overcome going to the toilet? Like, why do you waste so much time taking a shit? Why don't you try to overcome so you never have to take a shit again? Like, you
But
can't do that. All you're gonna do is wind up holding in it for 2 hours or for 2 days, and then you're gonna get diarrhea and shit your pants, right? You can't overcome. And it's the same thing that happens with emotions. It's not gonna be 2 days. Maybe it'll be a few months or a few years, but eventually those emotions will explode out of you.
but you can't compare. You can because you just did. But there is no comparison between breathing and emotions.
The comparison is they're both a
Oh,
natural part of the human experience.
so if well, why when these people go to these dumb psychologists and psychiatrists and counselors and things like that, why do if emotions are neither good nor bad, why are they given antidepressant pills and pills that make you feel good, make you feel bad? Why do they call it post traumatic stress disorder and all that if emotions were neither good nor bad?
Because some people have a brain imbalance and some people are going through a really hard time and they use SSRIs to help people feel better. I'm not like the biggest advocate of like fucking antidepressants, but yeah, I think sometimes their use is warranted if someone is like really depressed because they had something bad happen. Like, for example, I can tell you with my mom, When our dog died, my mom was really, really sad. She went to a psychiatrist. She couldn't get over it, and they gave her an SSRI. A few years later, she got over it, and then she got off the SSRI. So, yeah, I think that I think sometimes the use of SSRIs can be warranted when people have a brain imbalance or they're feeling too much more sadness than they can handle.
You said when her dog died?
Yeah, our family dog. Yeah.
Well, why was she so into a dog that it would have that kind of effect on her? What was missing in her life that she tried to get it from the dog? Who let the dogs out?
Nothing is missing. What, have you ever had a dog, Jesse?
Yes.
You didn't find it sad when your dog passed away?
No.
So you weren't sad when your dog died?
I remember as a kid, I had a dog, and when I reflect on that, I do remember as a kid, my dog died, and I felt this sad. But when I had a dog as an adult, I've never felt sad about a dog dying. It's just a dog. Dogs don't have love, and they don't give love. And so it was just a dog. It was a pet. It wasn't a comforter.
That's one of the saddest things I've ever heard, man. Like, if my dog passed away, I would be devastated. Like, you didn't have any kind of bond with your dog?
No, not like that. I enjoyed the dog. I went hunting with the dog. I enjoyed the dog, but not bonding with an animal. That doesn't make sense. You know something wrong with you if you bonding with an animal. And animals don't have love. Why would you bond with a loveless animal?
Yeah, they do, dude. Dogs are the most loving, loyal creatures ever.
Why do you say that?
You can just see, like, if you have a dog that you have a close bond with, my dog just follows me around. It hugs me. It, like, sits on my shoulder. You can tell the dog loves you.
But no, that's because you're making the dog feel good in that you're taking care of the dog. But anyone that think that they're getting love from a dog or a cat or a rabbit or whatever, it's only because they lack love. They don't have love, so they have a false idea that they're getting love from an animal. Sometimes I see it's so bad, man. It's so bad that I see people now bringing dogs on airplanes. I'm like, look at that dummy. Why would the airline allow them to bring their animals on the airplane? You know what I mean?
Wait, so
but they say it's a comfort dog or something. But the person's still crazy, even though they have the dog with them. They're still mentally and emotionally insane.
So you didn't feel any sadness when your dog died? None at all when you were an adult?
No.
That's crazy, man.
But when I was growing up, we didn't bond with dogs. That's something new, I think. That's because there's no love in families, and there's no love now. And so the people are trying to find, and I think white people do bond with their dogs more so, or cats, than black people do, because I notice in my neighborhood, I see a lot of white women walking around with dogs and things like that. And they have a false sense of happiness. You can see that they're still miserable, but they have a false sense of happiness rather than real happiness.
Okay, would you be sad if one of your friends died?
Maybe for a minute, but not. I wouldn't drool over it. You know what I'm saying?
But it just sounds like you've created this really weird type of space in your mind where you just suppress sadness. I don't think that's good for you, dude. You should be sad if your friend dies. You should be sad if your dog dies.
I probably would be sad for a minute, but it wouldn't go on for days and weeks.
Just for a minute? If your closest friend died, you would be sad just for a minute?
I'd give it 24 hours, something like that.
24 hours, really? If like your closest friend dies, you're just sad for 24 hours?
But why should I be sad after that?
Because it was a human being who you had a very strong connection with.
But the human being is gone.
Right, but you still have that bond that's missing. Like, you should go through the grieving process. I would say that if you don't feel sad when one of your closest friends dies, then you are a sociopath. Because anyone else who's like actually like a healthy human being would feel a lot of sadness over that. I'm not saying you should dedicate the rest of your life to crying over your friend, but there should be a significant amount of sadness. And if you don't feel that, then there's like something going on with your brain that's like,
like I said, I would be sad for 24 hours, maybe a day or so, but that's about it, right? And I'll tell you an amazing story. You want to hear an amazing story about death and dying? About sadness and dying?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my father expired a couple of years ago, right? And my father and I was tight. We became very tight. And uh, I love my father. My father loved me. I had no more anger toward him or anything. And so when my father expired, I didn't even feel like he died. It seemed like he had not expired. I can see that his body had no life in it. And so uh, we had the funeral. My brother, some of my brothers and sisters were tripping out, crying, carrying on, really out of it. And I realized that they were feeling that way because they never forgave my father. They had this anger. So when he died, they felt guilty. Because if you notice, when human beings die, whether it's your daddy, your mama, your friend, your sister, your brother, these people are not crying over the person that died. They're crying over their own ego self. It's about them. It's not about the person that died because the person is gone. The person is dead. But when people carry on about a dead person, it's about them and not about the dead person. Because when my father died, I didn't carry on. I didn't cry. I didn't act that way because I loved him. I didn't resent him. People with anger carry on it, when someone died and 50 days gone by, they still crying over mama or daddy or a cat or a dog. It's all about themselves. It's not about the dead.
What if your son died? How long would you be sad for?
Same thing.
24 hours?
I give it maybe 20, 25.
Just okay, so the son gets an extra hour, right?
Yeah.
Wait, are you trolling or are you serious? You would only be sad for 25 hours if your son died?
Yeah, because what's the purpose? What's the purpose of being sad after that? Because sadness lead to depression. If you're sad too long, it lead to depression. You realize you had an amazing time. The person is gone. May their soul rest in peace, and you move on with life.
Jesse,
I have grandkids, great grandkids, right? And I enjoy hanging out with them and blah blah blah. But I'm not bonding with them. So if something should happen, I have to lose my life too.
it just sounds like you've completely cut yourself off from your emotions.
Well, I haven't cut myself off. Emotions are ego. And when the ego dies, the emotion disappears as well. And now you have real love for all people, no matter what.
Yeah, but I think like 99% of people would tell you that there's something wrong that if your son passes away and you're only sad for like 25 hours. That's not really like a normal sense of, not a normal, I guess, mental whatever place to be in is where
No,
you like, where you're like just, oh, my son died, but it's okay. I'll just go on with my life. He was cool. Yeah, we had some good times.
normal based on what?
Based on like 99.9% of human beings and how they operate.
Well, that's because 99.9% of human beings are in a fallen state. They have fallen away from God. They've been turned away from their earthly fathers. And so they're out in the wilderness looking for something to make themselves feel good. And so they attach themselves to the first thing that comes along. But that's not love. You're never going to find peace. That's why you have to overcome the fallen state if you want to have a peaceful life. You can live in this world and have total peace, but you got to overcome the fallen state. And that doesn't mean you won't have friends and family and things like that, but you won't be attached to them in a way that if you should lose them, you lose your life.
Yeah, my assessment, honestly, is that you've just cut off yourself. You've become emotionally repressed and sexually repressed. You've just cut yourself off from everything that makes you human. I don't know how that's a good thing, though.
But those things, I just told you though, human nature is evil. Human nature is not about love, it's about hate.
Uh huh.
Have you noticed that?
No.
Do you think human beings have love?
Yeah, of course.
Where's the proof that they have love?
Where's what?
Where's the proof that they have love?
You see selfless acts, mothers doing selfless acts for their kids.
No.
Bro, you don't see that?
Mothers do not do selfless acts.
My mother did.
Mothers are mothers are the most ego-driven people on this side of heaven. Why do you think that when their sons grow of age, 18 and older, they're ready to leave home, but the mother won't let them? Oh, you need to stay home and make money. Oh, you need to save this and save that. Do it this way or that way, right? Um, or if the son said, no, I'm leaving. And the mother get mad. You don't love me. All the things I've done for you. Now you want to leave. And God forbid if the son get married, all of a sudden the mama want to move in and she'll destroy her son's marriage because of her jealousy of his wife. And she'll find some reason. Oh, I want to be with the grandkids. She'll run her husband off to be with the son. She'll make him her husband because she's an ego driven person. It's not about the son or daughter, it's about her.
Did you have a bad relationship with your mother?
No.
You had a good one?
My mother, if you saw my mother, good Christian woman, she dead now. She dead. But the only thing that my mother did wrong, as most mothers do, is try to turn the children away from the fathers because of her jealousy. The worst thing that can happen to children for a woman, the mother, is for them to love their father over her. Mothers can't stand it when boys and girls love their fathers, so they'll turn them away. Right? My mother did that, but other than that, everything was fine.
But your mother did try to turn you away from your father, right?
Yeah, she resented my father, and
Oh, okay.
so she didn't like all women do. All women resent the children's father.
Wait, no, no,
Right?
no, Jesse, hang on a second. Okay, this makes sense now. I think you're just projecting your experience because my mother didn't do that. Most of the people I know, their mothers didn't do that. My mom wanted me to have a great relationship with my dad. So I think you're projecting what happened in your family just onto the world.
It happened to all families in one way or another. You just haven't paid attention to it to see. But
It never happened
women,
in my family.
so what?
It never happened in my family. I had a great mom who was super supportive, and
I
she
get
wanted.
calls every day from around the country and some from around the world. It doesn't matter the language, male or female, the money they have or don't have. They'll. You're right, Jesse. I resent my mother. I just didn't know I resented my mother. I thought I loved my mother, but that emotion that they felt for the mother come from anger, and they are afraid to tell their mothers. I say, okay, go and apologize. Your mother could not help herself, right? I say, go and forgive her for what she's done. Most of them are afraid to do it because they have the wrong type of love. They have resentment toward their mothers and not love. They think that emotion that they feel, and the mother make them feel guilty because I had you, I took care of you, I raised you, I was did for this, that kind of thing, right? So they feel like they owe their mother something, not realizing that they resent their mothers because you don't owe your mother anything. Your mother and your father had you. They decided to make a baby. They took care of you. That's what parents are supposed to do, not with the idea that you're going to take care of them.
Yeah, I understand that it happens, and I'm sure that people come to you telling their story. It's the same reason why a lot of people email me and say, "Oh, Alex, I have a horrible Tinder profile." But that is because there's a sample bias going on because I talk about Tinder in my channel, so people come to me when they have bad Tinder profiles. You talk about bad relationship with the mothers, so of course people who have bad relationship with their mothers will come to you. The people who have good relationship with their mothers, why would they come to you? Like, why
Well,
would?
so I'm saying they have good relationship, but they come to me too, and then they realize that they don't have good relationship with their mother.
So, do you think it's impossible that someone would have a
And,
mother who?
and again, I talk with callers from around the world. I counsel with them, by Skype, or some come into the office or by phone. It's the same story everywhere. Every gender, every culture, every religion, every language. The devil talked to everybody with about the same lie.
Do you think it's impossible that someone could have a mother who does not turn them against their dad?
Only if the mother has overcome her anger, forgiven her mother and forgiven her father, then that's possible. But if she has not done that, um, if she has not done that, then it's impossible.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I guess my mother then overcame her mother because yeah, I never had any of that. My mom definitely did not try to turn me against my dad or anything like that. Okay. I want to change gears a little bit. So I was doing a good amount of research about you, and this just kept coming up and up and up and up over and over again. And those are like the allegations. Like people kept saying, "Oh, Jesse, had a scandal with this guy, with that guy." Why are there so many allegations against you?
If I were you, I would not get into gossip. That's a woman's nature. So
Well,
I don't get into gossip. Don't deal in gossip. I wouldn't do that, right? Because people tell me things about you and other folks, but I tell them to go to the person and forgive them and move on with your life and stay out of other people's business.
Yeah, but it seems like there was just like so many people.
I don't care if the whole world did it. It doesn't matter.
But why are there so many people like coming out?
You have to go to them. I told you I'm not going to do that. So you're not going to pull me down that road. You talk to them if you want more information about it.
Well, I want to ask you though.
And you said that you were not going to even ask me about this.
I never said that.
Yes, you did. You
When?
said that when I wanted to talk to you about it, I'll let you know.
I never said that. I never said I wasn't
When
gonna
I
bring
was
it up.
on your show, we was on my show.
No,
Oh, okay.
we never had this discussion.
Yeah. But I'm not going to discuss it with you
Okay,
because it's
interesting.
not your business, first of all. And it wouldn't do you any good. It'll just make your ego, because it seemed that you love gossip, it will make your ego feel good, but it wouldn't do anything good for you.
No, but it kind of ties into the main argument. So my argument is that I think that you're cut off from your emotions and you become repressed, and it kind of makes sense that if you become very sexually repressed, that manifests in like really weird ways, right? Like you see this all the time in the Catholic Church. Like you see like all the priests who go like celibate for their whole life, and then they get into all these scandals, right? So I think that like that would totally make sense and explain why you feel the way you do and why you become so repressed.
Okay, if you want to believe that, there's nothing I can do about it. Believe what you want. You can't once a person believe a lie, you can't convince them that it's a lie. So believe what you want about that, man. I have no response to you for that.
So you would say all those people are
I just
lying?
told you, do you hear me?
I'm trying to hear you. So you would say all
You
those
don't
people?
act like you hear me.
I am definitely hearing you, bro.
I told you I'm not getting into gossip with you. You call them and ask them about if you love gossip, you're talking to the wrong person.
It just sounds like you're trying to deflect, Jesse. Oh, did he just drop off? He rage quit. I had a feeling that was going to happen. Uh, oh, there you are. What are you doing, Jesse? Are you on the show? Nope, he's quitting. Nope, he's here. Hello? Nope, he's quitting. Oh, he's done. I had a feeling he was going to rage quit. Yeah, I felt like I would be doing a disservice to my audience and to like the truth if I didn't bring it up. I try to do it in a respectful way, but yeah, he like ran away from that, which just makes me think that there's something going on there. Like when I was doing research on him before this, and there's just so many allegations. Like it was his, like I wrote this down because it was just like way too many. Like if it was one or two, I'll be like, okay, maybe this is just people talking shit. But it was like his co-host, who he was very close with. It was this guy Samuel, Trayvon Chapman, Armin Martin Francis. There was like his Twitter at one point, like the gay pornography post. And there were so many videos of people like publicly confronting him about this. And the fact that he runs away from it so hard just makes me think that it's true. Because if you accuse me or something, if you're like, Alex, like you're like whatever, you're involved in the scandal, I'll be like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, show me the evidence, right? Like, I wouldn't run away from it. To me, it would be like funny. But yeah, the fact that he like runs away from it so hard just makes me think it's all true, and I would stake my life. And it all makes sense, right? Because you have a guy who's completely cut himself off from his emotions, right? Who's extremely sexually repressed and tries to shame people for engaging in something that's normal, and then he has all these scandals. So of course it makes sense. It's like a typical like hypocrite, like that's just like saying one thing and doing the other. So yeah, it all makes sense. He just totally like rage quit and just like ran away from that. And he just hides behind like religion and all that stuff. That was pretty funny watching him like rage quit though. Yeah, he's gonna be probably so butthurt.